Hi, and welcome to Comedy Recapped. Today we're going to talk about the 1984 Gene Wilder film titled The Woman in Red. This film follows the comedic troubles that happen upon a happily married man who suddenly gets the hots for a beautiful new woman in his life. Watch out, spoilers ahead. We're introduced to Teddy Pierce. He's on the ledge of a building high above the ground. He's explaining that he's not entirely sure how he got to this point. His narration takes us back into the past just 4 weeks earlier to a time when he had no adventures in his life but had a wonderful wife at home. However, one day, he notices a beautiful woman in a red dress on his way to work. The woman walks over a vent, which indelicately blows her skirt up and exposes her red satin string bikini underwear. At first, he's amused at her behavior as she seems to walk over it quickly, but that rapidly turns to infatuation and intrigue as she walks back over the grate and does a dance, not knowing he's watching. After being stunned by the intimate display, he follows her to the elevator where he quickly makes her uncomfortable with his gaze. They both get to the 4th level and the lights are out. She disappears quickly, leaving Teddy alone. Despite this interest, he's happily married to his wife Dede, but struggles to get the red-dressed woman out of his mind. Once in his office, Teddy notices the woman in across the other office through a glass wall. He tries to ring her up and set up a date to get to know her better, but instead rings up Miss Miller, a plain-looking ad agency employee who's flustered by his attention but seems excited at the sudden invitation. She nearly trips over herself after realizing she's mistaken for the model, the woman in red, and scurries out of the room. Teddy's friend Joe is having an affair of his own, but quickly things go south for him. He's abandoned by his wife, who leaves with everything, including the furniture. That night, Teddy is supposed to take his daughters out to a movie, but he comes home to cancel plans so he can make his date with the woman in red. It turns out he doesn't have to, though, when his daughter explains she and the neighbor boy, Shelley, will be going to a David Bowie concert instead. His excitement over things working out is quickly dampened when the neighbor boy, Shelley, walks up and aggressively gets in his face. With his punk rock looks and mohawk hairstyle, he's confused but decides to allow things to happen so he can continue with his plan. Dede, however, informs him that they're watching Joe's young son that night. Joe's sudden misfortune frightens Teddy, who suddenly has cold feet and decides to abandon the thought after a conversation with his wife. Dede is loving and attentive, but alludes to her crazy side, that she all but threatens would come out if he were ever to do the same to her as Joe did to his wife. She accidentally fires off a gun in their bedroom, further frightening Teddy about how her behavior might go south if she found out what he was thinking of another woman. When Teddy doesn't show up for his date, which unbeknownst to him was actually with Miss Miller, she enacts her revenge by scratching his car and bending his antenna. She calls Teddy up, who reschedules the date. But within seconds of arriving to his secret dinner, he suddenly realizes his major error and flees into the backseat of his car. Miss Miller follows and gets revenge again by letting go of Teddy's car's e-brake, sending him barreling down the road. On their next encounter, Miss Miller surprisingly acts more friendly to Teddy, as if nothing happened. This comes much to his confusion, as it turns out she's begun to see another coworker instead. Next, Teddy learns that the woman in red, Charlotte, enjoys horseback riding and makes a point to meet her at a ranch. He lies and says he's a skilled horseback rider and has been riding since childhood, to which she seems pretty skeptical. He asks her on a date, finally, and she rejects him at first, before finally agreeing. However, plans fall through when she calls from Los Angeles, explaining she was called in for work. He creates another charade by sending himself a fake telegram from work, just to go to Los Angeles. However, this fails when the airport is fogged in and the flights stop in San Diego instead. While in San Diego, Teddy calls Dede, who comes running in the room, followed soon behind by Shelley, the neighbor's punk kid. She shoos him away, but he instead gropes on her from behind and tells her he wants to marry her. She again denies his advances, but it's clear the two of them have something more intense going on. Teddy, meanwhile, is none the wiser. Teddy does eventually get to know the woman in red, who turns out to be a British model, and they're able to finally set up a date together. They plan to visit his nanny on her birthday so she won't be alone, but encounter a surprise party with his whole family, as well as his wife and children. Luckily, Teddy's friend tells a lie that Charlotte is actually his date, not Teddy's, and ushers her out of the room to not arouse any suspicions. Soon they all create a ruse to get Teddy away from Dede and back to Charlotte by pretending that Joe is threatening to kill himself. Once they're in a car alone, they reveal the distraction. They also explain that it was Charlotte's idea in the first place, giving Teddy hope that he hasn't ruined the whole thing. In response, he quickly changes his looks and wardrobe, going and taking care of his hair and outfits to better get Charlotte's attention once more. Everything comes to a head once Teddy and Charlotte make it back to her high-rise apartment after all this time. She's more interested in him now than ever, now that he's unavailable and not nearly as old-fashioned as she'd initially thought. Charlotte then disrobes in front of Teddy and they slip into her satin waterbed. Teddy is thrilled to finally consummate his fantasy. But before they're able to do anything, her airline pilot husband suddenly calls from downstairs. She quickly ushers Teddy out of the room and onto the ledge, promising it will be only a minute before he can come back inside. While on the ledge, Teddy gets quite a bit of attention from onlookers, people looking up to help him and others encouraging him to jump. They gather below, thinking he's about to leap, and it's all captured on live television, as the media has shown up as well. Dede, as well as their children, catch him on TV. Dede thinks he's doing this because of her cheating with the punk rock kid Shelley, despite him never having caught her in the act. Teddy then hears Charlotte having sex with her husband, putting an end to his newfound lust for this woman. He decides that cheating isn't worth it and jumps off the window ledge, presumably to the safety of the fireman's net below. While falling, a lovely newswoman catches his eye and smiles at him, possibly hinting at yet another affair chase in the future. And that's gonna wrap things up for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this recap as much as we did. If you like this video and want to look into other movies with us, then make sure you like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. That way, you won't miss a single video.